This Xfinity 500 Betting Picks edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has just added Pick'em Scorchers where you can win 100x. That's right, turn $5 into $500 in one game. Plus, every Sunday, they're giving away $100,000. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $500. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month and start making smarter bets today. Plus, the NBA is back and we are going to celebrate by giving away a NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA dog for all of the details.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Coming down to the wire, the final two races of the NASCAR Series season. It's a sad day in this world, but we'll make the best of it. It is, of course, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. Buddy, the races are winding down, my friend. After this week, we're down to the last one.
Oh, it's so sad. This week, though, brought to you by number 2. I guess we'll have to find a way to bet on Austin Cindric now. Got 2 races left, 2 drivers locked in, 2 spots remaining. All about 2 this week. Oh, man, this is going to be short track racing. Again, the package still needs a little work with this new car, right? But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be crazy. There's only 2 spots available. You've got 6 drivers. We're in for a good one this weekend at Martinsville.
We are. And of course, as we already know, Christopher Bell is locked in courtesy of his win last week. So he doesn't have to have any more clutch performances in the playoffs to get in there. It's up to somebody else now.
Not to get in, yeah. he would like to have one more clutch one if he waits till next week.
Well, sure. I mean, that everybody wants that clutch one in Phoenix, but he doesn't need to worry about it this week. He can go out, drive himself a nice, clean race, have a good Sunday drive, and prepare for what is the last race of the season. Yes, you are right. We are at Martinsville, short track racing. Yes, speaking of.
Yes, and a Bell too. I just wanted to say, originally had him in my card here. He's 20-1 to win this weekend. And I was like, oh man, you like all the momentum he's got and everything. But Adam Stevens specifically said they are testing things this weekend. So if you want to bet on him, I don't hate it because of the momentum and maybe they just hit on something, but they're going to be testing things. They're not, I mean, Larson said he spent 0 time on the simulator for Phoenix last week, and that paid off with like a 38th place finish for him. So, it's like, I know you want to win now, but I think looking ahead is a smart thing to do. So I just wanted to toss that out there on Bell because I originally had him in my card. After I kind of heard Steven's comments, it was like, maybe not.
Yeah, and when these guys straight up say we're testing, I mean, normally they already know they're not in for a day where they're going to be chasing after anything. And again, Christopher Bell doesn't need to chase anything anymore. Like he can take this time to play with some setups and to, do some short runs or try out some different tire strategies. It's all up to them now to see how they want to play this. Of course, they've only got a half a mile to get this done around this track. It is, of course, a 0.526 mile paved track, 500 laps, good for 263 miles. in the Xfinity 500 in Martinsville. Short track racing, man. I'm telling you, this is such a crazy way to weed out the last of who needs to get in to the championships. It just so many hot tempers, so much tight packed racing. And yet though, we've seen Martinsville get strung out a little bit. So, not necessarily strung out, but you know what I mean? Not necessarily banging bumpers for the lead. So, this is going to be a very interesting penultimate race, as it were, as the broadcast likes. I don't even know what penultimate means. Well,
sometimes I think Michael Waltrip tries to lean a little hard into the "I'm dumb" card, and it's like, we get it, buddy. We get it.
We know. All right. Any news? Any notes that we have coming into this?
Boy, did you bring some news or notes, Rod? Because there's not really any news or notes to talk about. I mean, really, it's pretty straightforward. There's not been anything announced. We still plenty of things out there, right? And we still don't know all the Cup Series rides. We don't know all the big Xfinity rides. But yeah, I mean, there's not really been anything announced. So shit, I think it's time to get into the bets.
Seriously, I was scrolling through earlier today. I mean, obviously it is a Tuesday that we record this, and I was like, it's pretty quiet there I think everybody's just kind of playing it close to the vest until we get closer to the race itself. So yeah, I was like, well, guess we're going to have a short.
Yeah. There's just, there's just not really been any news that's come out. So it's pretty straightforward. We got 2 races left. Everybody knows it. We could set up the points real quick. I guess that'd be probably a good thing to mention.
Sure.
Obviously Bell and Larson are locked in. That leaves those 2 spots left. Byron is 30 points to the good. While that is a very good thing for William Byron, the thing to keep in mind is if one of these other guys wins, that puts him on the cut line. And if he has a bad day, he's not as comfortable as he feels. He's 30 points to the cut right now, but he's only 20 points over Blaney in general. So if somebody else moves that cut line, that could be cut off. He's still got to have a good day. So Byron 30 to the good, Blaney 10 to the good, Reddick 10 to the bad, Truex and Hamlin both 17 to the bad, Buescher 43 to the bad. So Buescher is in a must win. The other 5 guys are not in must wins. Obviously, though, winning will make it nice and easy for you. Denny Hamlin comes in as the clear-cut favorite. He's plus 275 on some books. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the other thing I wanted to I got too many tabs open. Something's playing music. No, that's just my head. I was trying to find the tiebreaker. So because it is so close and you've got 2 guys tied already with Truex and Hamlin, and if this ends up tied at the end, it goes on your best finish in that round. And so obviously we've got Vegas and Homestead to look back on, or if Martinsville was a better finish. So Blaney holds the highest tiebreaker at 2nd place. Reddick has a 3rd place. Byron has a 4th place. Truex a 9th. Hamlin a 10th. Buescher an 11th. So unless they were finishing better in this race, that's the order of the tiebreakers. Obviously, Truex and Hamlin are tied right now. 9th for Truex, 10th for Hamlin in this round. So Truex would hold the tiebreaker unless they finish better and end up tied, and Hamlin beat him in this one. So, there you go. That's pretty cut and dry. Win this race, you're in the championship. Otherwise, it's going to be exciting to see very much in a track position race whose team takes care of business and who doesn't make the mistakes.
Such a tightly packed, like you're talking 9th, 10th, 4th, 2nd. I mean, it's these guys, literally, this is why these guys are playoff drivers. They've been running in the top of the charts for the entire season long, which is why it comes down to the wire, and one position literally does matter for this as well. All right, speaking of positions, we'll tell you where we think some of your favorite drivers are going to finish. But let's tell you first about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. And, of course, drive along with your favorite drivers as well. Underdog has just introduced Scorchers. Go 5 for 5 and pick them, Scorchers, and enjoy a spicy 100x payout. And for a limited time, Underdog is extending the first deposit bonus up to $500. Plus $100,000 Sundays continue on Underdog Fantasy. 10 lucky players are going to wake up $10 $1,000 richer. We're going to give you all the Underdog fantasy plays that you can handle on our Friday show. So make sure you come back on Friday for the Underdog fantasy show. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with the promo code SGPN, Underdog's going to double your first deposit of up to $500. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. You want one of those snazzy looking NBA Gambling Podcast hoodies? I know you do, because the NBA is back and we're celebrating by giving away an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA Dog to submit a screenshot of you playing NBA Underdog using our promo code SGPN. One random winner is going to get an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA Dog. Tell Moonoff the NASCAR Gambling Podcast sent ya. Moonoff won't care. I love Moonoff, but he won't care.
No,
He'll be like, nah, whatever. Those guys,
those guys, what do they do?
I don't know. They only make him money. I know that we gave him a Larson to win that one time, and it kind of fed into his new young ones future college fund. So
yeah, he's hit us up for the picks a few times. So now they got back in the full swing. I think NBA tips off tonight. Oh boy. Oof. Maybe. I don't know. I probably should know that, but
for this. I can't. Like, I already got racing and football and Australian rules football and Canadian football. I can't do it.
I watch the NBA in June, so
I don't watch it at all. So.
But you can listen to the show, bet on it. You don't even have to watch it.
Nope, you don't. But of course, play Underdog and definitely make sure you do that. So,
yes.
Speaking of picks and bets and stuff, it's time to start setting up ours for this Xfinity 500. Cody, where are we going first? That card looks full, buddy.
Oh, it's packed full again this week. Feeling good coming off of last week. We cashed a lot of bets. We're going to try and run it back, double it up. I'm going to start off with Ty Gibbs, top 10 finish, plus 120 over on DraftKings. Faded him last week to a degree, right? We talked about how we still probably have a good finish. Just thought that Harvick would be better. Obviously, didn't pan off. Erica keeps rubbing it in my face on Twitter. So shout out to her, but that's okay. I'm on him this week. Ty Gibbs, plus 120 to finish in the top 10. Obviously, 7th place last week. 4th place at the Roval a couple of weeks ago. He had a 5th place at Bristol recently. He's had some very good, strong runs. Finished 18th here in the spring and 19th last fall in his first start. But Martinsville is one of those tracks where your first couple of starts, this track can be pretty tough on you. It's not very forgiving. You go back to Xfinity, though. Last fall, he led 102 laps and won the race here. Last spring, he led 197 laps. Had a mistake late where they ended up finishing in 8th. But in his first start in Xfinity back in 2021, finished 4th place. That was his 3rd career Xfinity start. So he's had some success in the Xfinity level here. They continue to take those steps, and they're continuing to move forward. I think we're going to see another good, strong run out of Gibbs this weekend. So give me Ty Gibbs, top 10, plus 120. I'm also going to take Ryan Preece, top 10, plus 160. Listen, every time we come to these short flat tracks, I am all over the Stewart-Haas cars. If you've listened this season, you know it. We fade them everywhere else, but they have been good here. If you don't remember this race in the spring, Ryan Preece qualified on the pole. He led the first 135 laps. He went to pit. He came out as the leader, but he was speeding because he just gunned it out of that last pit stop, went a little too fast, got sent to the back, still recovered for a 15th place finish, which, as hard as it is to pass on this track just in general, was a pretty good way for him to climb back up in there. You go back to the Clash race at the Coliseum. Again, so Martinsville, not really any comp tracks, right? It's kind of its own thing. You can look at other short tracks. You can look at other flat tracks and use them, but it's not a direct comparison. The spring race obviously is going to be your biggest comparison, but a lot's changed since then. And the Coliseum is kind of the other one that's the closest to it, even though it's a lot smaller. But Preece led 43 laps there before he had some type of issue while he was leading. Ended with a decent finish, but led a bunch of laps, has looked good. He's also a modified guy. And so this is short flat tracks are what those modifieds run on. This is how he came up through the ranks. And three of his last 4 races this season have been 13th or better. So he's kind of a little bit getting on a hot streak. They're kind of starting to figure some stuff out. He's going to be back at Stewart-Haas next year. Again, was that playing mind games and all that. He's got it figured out. He's got it taken care of. Going to be back. Now he's just out there racing. I think Ryan Preece also gets a top 10 finish, plus 160 over on DraftKings.
I have some things to say about Fords later on, so I will expand on that. Gibbs, I know, but it still scares me. It's still such a difficult, just a difficult thing to think. I know he's going to have a good finish. He's going to probably jump up in the top 10, but then there's a part of me that goes, not this week, Rod. And I'm like, I'm sorry, voice, but I won't take it. So we'll see. I'm not ever going to question Cody anymore because this dude cashes more tickets than a 7-Eleven lottery machine in some weird town that nobody's ever heard of. So, okay. I'm going to go with my first top 10 bet, and that is Bubba Wallace at plus 160 over there on DraftKings. This one's harder to justify than Ty Gibbs, which is a difficult thing to wrap your head around. But Bubba Wallace, though, on the last couple of races on this track, an 8th place finish and a 9th place finish. So earlier in the spring, he did finish 9th. The year before that, he finished 8th. But he was, of course, in that 45 in the 2022 season. Remember, they were switching things out. And he was in the 45 for the last part of it. Of course, really just the same car, just a different number if you're really counting things. But for Bubba, it's been such a weird run for him, right? He started on the pole in Texas and finished 3rd, which really for his team was kind of a victory because, you put it on the pole and you finish 3rd still for Bubba Wallace. It's kind of like, that's a moral victory. It may not be in victory lane, but you hung in there, you finished 3rd. You had some circumstances that were kind of screwing you up, right? You still led 111 laps in that race. So really great high, right? Then he leads 3 laps at Talladega, ends up 23rd in that one, 16th at the Roval, 13th at Vegas, which is, obviously the mile and a half, but then he comes out, starts 2nd at Homestead and finishes 6th. So I don't want to say there's momentum in Bubba Wallace's favor, but I think that 23 team, after making the playoffs, sort of feels a little better about themselves. The finishes are still sort of inconsistent, but I can still see Bubba kind of making his way into the top 10. How's he done at short tracks this season? Well, 14th at Bristol, 12th at Richmond. Like I said, 9th at Martinsville, 22nd at Richmond in the spring, 8th at Martinsville last fall. So again, even more inconsistencies in this, but again, I think there needs to be some sort of stance on Bubba to get better in this. And I know this isn't a popular take in the Discord. A lot of Bubba dislike in the Discord, but I still think he's good for a top 10 finish like he has the last couple of times on this track. And a plus 160, I mean, when we're talking plus odds in top 10s, that's kind of where you want to gravitate.
There is a lot of really good top 10 odds this week. I've got a couple of more coming up. But yeah, lots of good prices out there. I think Bubba's won here in the Truck Series before as well. So he's had some success on this track in the past. If I had to pick, I'm taking Gibbs over Bubba for the top 10. Even though it's priced a little shorter, I like him better. But I still like Bubba at the top 10 as well. Next up for me, Rod, I am going to go with your boy, AJ Allmendinger. Top 10 finish, 7-1 over on Caesars. If you go back and look at his last 3 races here, which unfortunately have been the 3 races in the next-gen car, so this is where I'm going to pull a Rod and argue against myself. Those finishes have all been in the 20s. But prior to that, he's been really good at Martinsville in the past. This is going back a little bit. Obviously had a little hiatus from the Cup Series, but in JTG equipment, not the best equipment. 14th, 8th, 40th in there, but 6th, 10th, 2nd, 11th, all in JTG cars. Twice he has finished 2nd place in this race, or at this track, rather. 7 times he's finished in the top 10, 10 top 11 finishes. So again, one of those guys that's right there on the border of the top 10, at least most of the or half the time, right? So 10 times of his 24 starts, he has finished inside of the 11 here, or inside the top 11 here. This, a lot of times road course guys, and this actually is another bonus in the Ty Gibbs basket, right? Road course guys happen to be good at Martinsville as well because it comes down to braking a lot. And to be really good on a road course, you have to be really good at braking. And that translates here because it's a lot of braking. You're heavy on the brakes. You've got to use it right. Got to get back to the gas appropriately. So that plays into AJ's favor here. He's also coming off of really good runs, right? 5th place last week at Homestead. He won the Roval just a couple of races ago. So kind of riding that momentum. What have you done for me lately? AJ's looked pretty good. it's probably about the end of his Cup Series career, right? Maybe he runs some part-time stuff, right? Maybe Colic fields an extra car or something for some of the road courses. But as a full-time Cup Series guy, probably has about 2 races left. So trying to go out on a high note. He's been looking good here lately. I think it's 7-1 again. Just like last week, you kind of take some of these longer shot darts on guys that you can make a strong case for. It paid off for us last week. I think it could pay off again. And then I really squeezed these first couple of boxes, Rod. There was too many bets out here I really like. So also in this box, Chase Briscoe. I was originally just going to take him top 5 plus 450. But I'm also going to throw the top 10 out there at plus 150 because, again, top 10 odds are just really juicy this week. But Chase Briscoe, love to clown on him on mile and a half. It's funny. It's great because he's not been the best, but he is really fucking good on short, flat tracks. Got that win at Phoenix last season, 5th place here in the spring at Martinsville. He led 109 laps in the spring here after his teammate, who I just got done talking about, led 134 lap, 135 in the spring. Then Briscoe led 109, finished 5th. His other 2 next-gen car starts at Martinsville here, 9th and 9th. So he's 3 for 3 on getting in the top 10. So the top 10 at plus 150, I think, is great. The top 10 at plus 150, the top 5 at plus 450. I'm going to take both of those on Chase Briscoe. And not done talking about Chase Briscoe yet. So we'll talk. I got a little more on him in a bit here.
Yeah, I saw the name, obviously, through my research pop up time and time again. Open up the doc. Cody's on him. So I said, well, I
love it, right? Because I in general fade him a lot and I don't bet on him much elsewhere, but comes to the short flat tracks every single time, and his not being great everywhere else inflates his number every time we get back to a short flat track, which makes it great because then you can pounce.
Yeah, and of course, like I said, I've got more to say about Fords in a second too, so I'll get there. Let's do this, and then we'll continue on with our bets. Let's talk about Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark. Join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month today. Start researching and start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, I'm going to jump into the top 5 markets for this next bet, and that is going to be young Ryan Blaney as a top 5 driver. Not just because my daughter is absolutely in love with both Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney, so she'll be happy that I have both of these guys in my card, but because Ryan Blaney at plus 190 on DK is probably one of the better priced top 5 drivers in this. Why? Because he boasts a 5.7 average finish at Martinsville over the last few years, since February, of course, of 2020. In those 7 races, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 7 top 20s. He's led 232 laps around this as well. His best finish was a 2nd place. Talk about what he's done at Martinsville, right? Earlier in the spring, a 7th place finish. Last fall, a 3rd. The spring before that, a 4th. And then a couple 11th place finishes sandwiched in that 2021 season. But 2nd place in November of 2020, 2nd place in June of 2020, and then a 5th place in the fall of 2019, 4th place in the fall of, or spring rather, of 2019. And that's all in the 12, right? And then a 3rd in 2018 as well. So, man, I'm telling you, this guy is in the top 5 a lot on this track. This is also one of those situations, too, where Blaney not necessarily great on any other track but Martinsville when it comes to short tracks. Bristol 22nd, Richmond 14th, Richmond again 26th, Bristol 30th, Richmond 10th, right? Martinsville 11th in there as well. But, yeah, definitely not something to write home about in most short tracks other than Martinsville. So something about this track, something about this particular race seems to do Ryan Blaney quite well. And like I said, in a market of top 5s where you're getting, Larson at minus, you're getting Hamlin at minus, Truex at minus. Like all these guys are so heavily juiced, even in the top 5 markets. Like it's not fun to bet on those guys. So I'm going to go ahead and take Blaney at a plus 190 to sneak his way. Well, maybe not even sneak, because obviously, like I said, he's done it before. So I think he can do it again. I'm trying to pull up real quick because I want to give you just a sort of where it's at as far as the top 5 is concerned. So Hamlin's at minus 200, Larson's at plus 105. So at least that's a little better there. Byron at plus 120. But like I said, you can find Blaney at plus 190 over on DK. I think that's a good value.
Blaney's average finish these last couple of races has just been great, right? He's been running really well. He just scares me, and he's one of those guys that just seems to find a way to piss away a good opportunity when he's got it. Little scared on Blaney this week, but the numbers are there. He should be good. He's got the momentum here lately, so we'll see if he can actually put it together, get it done. Next up for me, Rod, first of all, I want to give another shout out to Caesars because, again, they are killing it. First of all, you go over to the matchup bets here. They have qualifying matchup bets. They have qualifying team match bets. So you can bet in qualifying Team Penske against, I'm assuming this is Stewart Haas Racing, S Racing. Yeah, Stewart Haas. You can bet front row against Colleague, like which team just qualifies better, right? Absolutely great. Then obviously they've got the race match bets as well. You come down over into their other section. They've got all the normal stuff they have, the top Chevys, the top 10, all this, all the special props and stuff. But again, number of Fords in the top 10, Chevys in the top 10, Toyotas in the top 10. They've got the margin of victory. This is a really fun one. Is it going to be between 0.001 and, so yeah, we'll get there. But again, just killing it with the special props. So shout out to them. I am going to take one of those for my next bet, and that is Chevrolet's in the top 10. This is set at 3.5. And obviously, just looking at this right away, you go, well, of course it's going to be over, right? It's Chevrolet's, like they've been dominating the season. It's minus 160 on the over, plus 130 on the under. I am going to take the underside on this. Obviously, if this was a mile and a half, Chevys, right? Because it's mostly Chevys up there, and Chevy's got a majority of the cars in the field. Chevys are generally dominant towards the top. But my thinking on this, Rod, is if you go back to the spring race, you only had 3 Chevrolets there. It was Larson won the race, and then it was Stenhouse in 8th and Chase Elliott in 10th, which it was not, like the 8th and 10th for your second 2 getting in there. And there was a couple other guys past that. But and then you go back to last season, and it did hit the over in both races last season. It was 4. But in both those races, Chase Elliott in 10th place was the last guy in. We've talked about it. We're going to continue to talk about it, how good the Fords are on the short flat tracks. They still haven't figured everything out on the intermediates, although you look at Ryan Blaney last week, right? He was really good there. But it's in Toyota, like Denny Hamlin, obviously a prohibitive favorite this weekend. Martin Truex, the track's named after him, right? It's Martinsville. And those are the guys that lead the league in wins at this track. But then if you go to the odds for the winning drivers, and this is what really got me. So you got Hamlin, then you got Larson and Byron as the second and third guys. So there's 2 Chevrolets. Then it's Truex, Keselowski, Blaney, Reddick, Logano, Kyle Busch. Okay, so there's your third one. Then it's Christopher Bell, Kevin Harvick. You got to go all the way down to Chase Elliott to get your 4th favorite Chevrolet at 18-1. Then it's Gibbs, Buescher, Almirola, Briscoe, Wallace, all the way down to Ross Chastain to just find your 5th one at 35-1. So the odds makers even agree we're not super heavy on Chevrolets up near the top. You look at it, and normally you think you've got the 4 Hendrick cars, but do you have 4 Hendrick cars at this point? Like, it's kind of the Larson and Byron show, and Elliott and Bowman are kind of, and Elliott's finished 10th place in all 3 Martinsville Next Gen cars races here, which is kind of an interesting statistic, I guess. But so that's not even a guaranteed top 10 for him, despite it. He's been good here in the past. He's won here. But I think got to fade the Chevrolets a little bit this week. A guy like Ty Gibbs gets up there, steals one of those spots. You get a Truex, you get a Hamlin up in there. If Bell competes, there's going to be plenty of Fords. Again, we're going to talk about Fords a lot more as we continue to go through here. Guys like Kyle Larson, sure, he should be good. Sure, he should finish good, but you saw what happened last week, right? even when he's got the best car, he sometimes makes mistakes. Things happen. So yeah, I think that you especially getting it at plus 130 here, you take under 10 Chevrolets in the top 10 at under 10 in the top 10. That'd be really nice, wouldn't it? Under 3.5 in the top 10 at plus 130 over on Caesars.
I'll back your play on that, and I'll do it in another way later on. Of course, we're saying fade Chevys. Well, I'm going to give you Kyle Larson as a top 3 car. It's not necessarily a complete and total fade, and I see that we'll talk about him a little more later on, but top 3 is a plus 250 for Kyle Larson, and this is a steal that I found on I didn't write down the book on this one, but I believe it was Superbook as a top 3 for Kyle Larson at plus 250. So find him there. He's at 210 on Caesars, but I did find a better price for him. I might even been at 360.
It is Superbook. Yep.
Superbook. Okay, good. So Superbook, Larson, top 3 plus 250. I mean, it's Kyle Larson. He had the best car, obviously. We talked about it until he wanted to build sandcastles and needed extra sand for it. So, but overall, as far as Kyle Larson on short tracks, especially on this one in particular, you look at his average finish, it's 8.2, right? He's got 5 races since 2020 on this track, and he's got an 8.2 average finish. 1 win, 3 top 5s in those 5 races, and 3 top 10s rather as well. But I'm also looking at what he's done on short track so far, right? Bristol earlier, a 2nd place finish, 19th at Richmond, but we also know he had problems there. 1 at Martinsville in the spring, 1 at Richmond in the spring, 2nd at Martinsville last fall, 5th at Bristol in September of last year as well. I mean, I don't know that I really have to talk too much about Kyle Larson to convince you that it's a top 3 car. I think it's going to be, again, 250. I know seems like a rich price for a guy that literally pummeled his way through garbage cans full of sand last week. But if there's a driver that can bounce back from that type of a situation and bounce off of those cans to turn in a good finish in the next week, it's Kyle Larson. I mean, honestly, I know he wanted to make that a dirt track so he could feel a little more comfortable. Just had a very bad way of going about it. I just feel like, again, he's embarrassed enough and he's too good of a driver to let something like that happen to him again in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I've got more on Larson here in a bit, so I'll wait. But just he's very undervalued this week. I get that he wrecked last week, but my goodness, yeah, top 3 at plus 250 is a great number. I'm glad you put it in there. And again, I've got more on him in a bit. First, though, back to my guy Ty Gibbs, and again, this kind of correlates with everything else I've said so far, as in a couple of ways. I'm going to take Ty Gibbs over Alex Bowman. This is minus 110 over on Superbook. So I made the case for Ty Gibbs to finish in the top 10. So if we already think that Gibbs is going to finish in the top 10, that's a good positive for him. I made the case for under Chevrolets to finish in the top 10 because they've not done the best, right? And Alex Bowman, he finished 11th here in the spring, so not a bad run, whereas Ty was 19th, I believe it was. But that was when Alex Bowman was leading the points. That's when he was running good week to week before he injured his back. Since he injured his back, is he racing? Is it a stunt double? I could be. I might even put my money on it as a stunt double because it's not been the same guy. He's not looked as good. Both of them have had a handful of good finishes lately and a handful of bad finishes lately. So you could kind of take that either way if you want to. But in the last 3 races, Ty Gibbs has beat Alex Bowman in all 3 of them. Again, he's coming off of some good finishes lately. He's still got something to run for, right? No, he's not in the points or, in the playoffs. And he's got the Rookie of the Year obviously wrapped up. But he's still looking forward to building that momentum, getting into next year. He's a young guy. He's learning. He's having these good runs. For Alex Bowman, we got 2 more weeks before I can sit down and let my back get better and feel better, right, and relax. And he's coming back to Hendrick. He doesn't have anything to worry about. You just haven't seen much from him lately. I feel like eye test-wise, Gibbs has been a lot better. Gibbs has got a little more to race for. So give me Ty Gibbs over Alex Bowman, minus 110 over on Superbook.
Yeah, I mean, again, for Alex Bowman, it's just been, I'd take anybody almost over Alex Bowman at this point. I was looking at it and I was like, man, he won a couple years ago, blah, 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 but that's not, I mean, you can't even compare those seasons to this one. It's just been a wreck of it. I'm sure he's ready as much as everybody else is for this offseason, he's probably even more ready.
And for a guy like that, especially on that good of a team, like he's going to be fine next year. We might see Alex Bowman win some races. He's going to be in the playoffs. I mean, he was leading the points before he had that sprint car wreck. And yeah, I mean, at this point, it's been a slug of a season, plus you're injured. I mean, we're starting to get a little bit older. You hurt your back, and it hurts, Rod. Like, it's no joke. So
you don't even have to hurt your back to hurt. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. Yeah, you sleep
my
wrong.
Hurts right now. I'm like, what are you talking about?
So that's what I'm saying. So it makes it uncomfortable in the car, and yeah. So
I take a deep enough breath, and all of a sudden my back's like, nope, you're not doing that anymore. I'm like, okay, that's cool. All right. So I said I was going to expound on your number of cars in the top 10. I'm actually going to as well. If there's not going to be 4 Chevys in the top 10 and there's only really 6 Toyotas, that means that Ford's going to have to make up the difference in this. So I'm going to go ahead and take Ford. The number of Fords inside of the top 10, I'll take over 3.5 at -130. Again, Cody, like you said, right? Chevy's not necessarily been represented all that well in the top 10 as far as this race is concerned. You look back at the spring, and I almost could just rest my case in the spring, right? You had 4 Fords inside of the top 10 in the spring, where it was Logano, it was Briscoe, it was Almirola, it was Blaney. Of course, you had to go back down to Buescher in 14th as the next one, but that was in of its own. 2022 in the Xfinity 500, there was only 3 Fords in the top 10. But Harrison Burton just missing out in that 11th place, right? But of course, in that race, I don't know, you had like all of the normal guys up there. So I guess you could really just say that Harrison Burton sort of tipped the scales on that one. In the 2022 Blue Emu Maximum Relief 400, there were actually 4 Fords inside of the top 10 with Logano, with Blaney, with Almirola, and with Briscoe. Hey, those 2 names making an appearance again in that one. And then of course, if you look at the 2021 Xfinity 500, there's 3 Fords inside of the top, 4 Fords inside of the top 10 rather, with Brad Keselowski, Eric Almirola, Chris Buescher was in 9th, and then Joey Logano was in 10th. But here's the interesting part about it too. There was a block between 9th and 12th of all Fords where it was Buescher, Logano, Blaney, and Harvick. That was a hell of a block of Fords right there. So again, going back 3 or 4 races, you've seen 4 Fords inside of the top 10. And even if there wasn't, one was just peeking outside of that top 10, waiting to get in. And all it takes is for a Chevy to mess up and give that spot to a Ford. So, and there's a hell of a lot of Fords out there right now. So I think I like the over on this one. It's -130. The book seemed to agree with us, but Cody, what's our saying? What's your saying?
You only pay the juice if you lose.
I don't think you're going to lose on this one. So number of Fords in the top 10, give me over 3.5 at -130.
Yeah, and I think that, again, this is kind of all correlated, right? If another Ford's getting in there, probably one less Chevy that's getting in there. It's juiced up towards the Ford side, so the books obviously kind of believe that as well. I believe that. Big on Ford. Ford, not only is their short track package just really good and they've got good cars, they've got guys that are really good short track racers. They've got guys that are good flat track racers. It kind of all just pans in together. Speaking of Ford, I'm going to take a couple of stabs at the top Ford bet. I'm going to take Eric Almirola at 9-1, Chase Briscoe at 12-1. These are over on Caesars. Again, both of these guys, very, very good at short, flat tracks. And I think that while we just made a case for Ford to be strong, and I expect Ford to be strong, right? You kind of look through here, and it's Keselowski at +220. He's the favorite, and he should be, right? And he's the second favorite to Denny Hamlin to win this race, and he's probably going to be strong. But how many times have we seen Keselowski be strong and mess up and something goes wrong, right? You got Ryan Blaney there, +350. Again, deserved. But like I said, after you had your bet earlier, like, do you trust him? I don't know. Logano, hardest guy in the garage to predict week to week. I'm going to stick to that because it's true. Kevin Harvick, we tried that last week. How'd that go for us? Chris Buescher, I know he won at Richmond, but he's not been very good. I really wanted to bet on Chris Buescher this weekend. He's in a must-win situation. Are they going to try and gamble? I don't know what's going to happen there, so you can't really trust him. And then it's Almirola and Briscoe and Preece as well. He's another guy you could throw in there if you wanted to. I already made the case for him. And then it kind of drops off, right? Then it's Gilliland, McDowell, Cindric. you're getting kind of far out there at that point. So I think that Almirola and Briscoe at 9-1, at 12-1, these are the guys that it is are the right numbers to go ahead and take someone here. For Almirola, I mean, you think of short flat tracks, you think of Almirola. He's won me so much money in the past in New Hampshire. He led some laps there earlier this season at New Hampshire. I believe he was leading the race when his tire came off and screwed his day. He finished 9th place last week, 14th at Richmond, or 8th place at Richmond, rather, 14th at Vegas, though, just recently. So he's been having some better runs, much like his companion, Ryan Preece, like I talked about earlier. Stewart-Haas is quietly starting to figure some things out, right? It's not been great, but it's not been we're running with BJ McLeod bad like it was early on the season. It's been better. So he finished 6th here in the spring. So again, you're telling me the guy that finished 6th place in this race in the spring is 9-1 to be the top finishing Ford driver. That's not a bad bet at all. And Almirola's last 4 races here, 6th in the spring, like I said, had a 15th last fall, but 8th and 6th in the other 2 races prior to that. So he's been pretty good here in the past. And then for Briscoe, I talked about him earlier, led 109 laps in the spring. He finished 5th in that race. So again, these guys were very close to the front. He's 5th, 9th, and 9th in his 3 starts in the next gen car at Martinsville. Has that win at Phoenix last season as well. It's almost like it's 2 completely different cars and drivers for Chase Briscoe. When you get to a mile and a half, it looks like the Mahindra tractor out there running. Then you get to a short track and a flat track, and it's like, oh my goodness, this dude is here to compete. And Briscoe could be alive to win this race even. Like that Stewart-Haas team can be good enough. And I'm going to be talking about one of those guys when I get to my picks, but I would not be shocked to see a Stewart-Haas car win this week. And honestly, I'd probably take the other 3 guys before I would take Kevin Harvick, even as crazy as that is to say, just because those 3 guys are good. And so you're going to get 2 of these guys. If you want to throw Preece in there at 12-1, not a bad idea to just throw a little bit on all 3 of them, right? First touchdown bet type of thing. You break your unit up into three parts or whatever. But I'm going to go with Almirola 9-1, Briscoe at 12-1 to be the top Fords.
And I already named off these top 10 guys and these top Ford guys. So any one of them could have snuck their way past a Logano spinning out, a Blaney spinning out. So obviously, they're running inside the top 10, which basically puts them close and in contention. So I can't argue on that one. All right. So this one, I just looked at the price and the public is already on it. So I had Hendrick as the winning team at plus 250. It is now at plus 225. And I say Hendrick as the winning team because if you go back to 2020, Chase Elliott won this in 2020. Then it was Martin Truex, but then it was Alex Bowman, but then it was William Byron, but then it was Christopher Bell, but then it was Kyle Larson. So we're talking 4 within the last 6 years, Hendrick team car winning this one. Now we talked about it. Elliott, Bowman, not so much of a threat, but those were the earliest of the 2. The last 2 have been Byron and Larson, and we know very well that both of those guys were in the mix last week as well until, like we said, Larson wanted to go to the beach. He was homesick for California and decided to make himself a nice little beach in pit road. And then, of course, William Byron sort of fallen off on the top. But both of these guys obviously are threats to win this race. And listen, I'm just saying, I know that the ghost of Elliott and Bowman, the injured Walking Dead, but they're still good cars. And this is still a track that you could maybe accidentally win a race as well. So I think obviously we're going to talk about our outright winners, but I think this is going to be a good week for Hendrick. Obviously, they know that their backs are against the wall as far as making the championship. You talked about it, Cody. I know that there's, Kyle Larson's in. That's fine, but Byron is against it, right? And he doesn't want to turn in a bad finish. There's no better feeling than just winning and knowing that you don't have to worry about points or worrying about, how far or who had a better day than you or whatever. Because when you're in first place, nobody had a better day than you. And that means that you are going to go and take the matters in your own hands. Byron's already done it on this track. And I think if you're going to get both of them at plus 225 to win this, I think it's a great multiplier if you take one of them as an outright as well. So I like that one.
And it throws in the insurance play of Chase Elliott, who's won here before. And he's still alive in the playoffs as far as the Owners' Championship. And so I don't know where that sits. I don't have that info in front of me. But, if it gets to a point where they take a late gamble or something to try and get to the championship for the Owners' title or however it works, It gives you that coverage, and Bowman's won her before too. So you get 4 good cars.
I agree. All right, and then I've got one more I squeezed in there too. I like this winning margin bet. It's between 3 and 10 seconds at plus 450 over on Caesars. There's a bunch of different combinations that they got going on. And listen, Caesars did not make this easy at all to pick one. So I just picked the one that I thought
and they're all like juicy too. They're all like plus 450 or higher. Like it's great. It's wonderful. Go throw a dart at a dartboard, pick one and bet it because it's great.
That's what I'm saying. Like you look back at this race and it's anywhere from a half a second to a second and a half to this spring where it was just over 4 seconds for Kyle Larson to have won this one. This one gives you a giant swath to cover, right? It's almost 7 full seconds of time coverage. So it could be 3 or it could be 9.5. It doesn't matter. So as long as whoever wins, and this is the great part about these bets, it doesn't matter who's winning. It's just the winner of this race. If they win it by 3 seconds or more, between 3 and 10 seconds, you're 4.5 times richer than you were when you went into it. So I feel like for something that happened this spring, right? And again, we talk about how a lot of these races don't shape up, but I think this is going to run a lot like it did in the spring. And I think that there's not going to be a lot of cautions. There will be like a 55 lap green or 55 green flag laps at the end of the race, I think in the spring, and Kyle Larson just sort of blew away from everybody at that point. So that could happen again in the fall. And I think a 3 to 10 second or 7 second margin in there at 4.5 to 1, it's worth taking a shot at.
Yeah, if I was picking a window, this is the window I would pick, I think. So yeah, I agree with you. And again, I'm just happy we get these things to bet on. Like that's the best part of this. So go bet them so they keep putting them back there and continue to give us these options. Because again, shout out to Caesars. They're killing it. Some of these other books have really dropped the ball this year. Barstool is just completely forgotten that they even have NASCAR, I think. So we'll see if that gets better when they switch to ESPN. But some of these books, it's not been great. So to see Caesars continue to give us more options, love it. Appreciate them.
Indeed. Well, I'm looking at that 1 to 2 seconds at 750. That's such a huge number right there.
Yeah, but it's such a small. I mean, 1 to 2. That's a real small window.
Yeah, you literally have to take the 1.5 seconds that the last race of this was. Oh, yeah. That's crazy. All right. We got winners to get to. So, Cody, who do we think is going to win this race?
Yeah, so I am going to go with at the top, near the top of the board. Kyle Larson over on Superbook is 8 to 1. Just the fact that it's Kyle Larson and it's 8 to 1. I mean, that alone is really the only argument you need to have. I didn't come into this week with Larson circled. I got to have him, but you're going to give him to me at 8 to 1. He's had the fastest car the last couple of weeks. Sure, he fucked it up last week. We get it. It happens. He's still got nothing to lose. He can go all out in the race like this. They're just here. Literally doesn't much like last week. And you have to give him props for trying, right? Because second place doesn't mean jack shit to him last week. Doesn't matter for points. He doesn't get extra, and it means absolutely nothing. It was win and take the trophy or go home, steering wheel or trophy, or, bring one back. And then he brought the steering wheel back with some sand on it. But again, at 8 to 1, why the books all season have just been all over Larson, and he's so short, and you saw it last week, and he's short. And I love Hamlin this week, and I think I'm going to be rooting for Hamlin for my championship futures to win this race, but you can't bet him at plus 275, plus 300. Absolutely not. It's the same thing as last week. Like, it is not that sure of a thing to bet on somebody that short. Larson at 8 to 1, you just, and he's plus 650 over on place like Caesars. So he's already a little shorter other places. I think you got to get it on this early before the number keeps dropping, because Larson at 8 to 1, there's way too much value. Oh, and by the way, the last time we were here, he won this race. So again, and you're just tossing that in at the end. This is just all about the value, let alone the fact that he's not, this hasn't been his greatest track, but he already won earlier this season in the same car with the same, everything's the same. So yeah, Larson 8 to 1, I think you got to do. All right. I said I had Christopher Bell in here. I said I took Christopher Bell out. I talked myself back into Christopher Bell. Look at 25 to 1. Again, over on Superbook, he's as short as 18 to 1 on some other books. 25 to 1, just a little sprinkle. You think about short flat tracks, you think about Christopher Bell. He's one of those guys that comes to the top of your mind as well. I just can't pass up on having a little bit. He has been on fucking fire lately. Sure, they're going to be trying stuff, sure, whatever, but Again, this is such a track position race. There's going to be some guys that have nothing to lose. Why not gamble? Let's see if you can get out front. Why not take some risks? Christopher Bell could be that guy. If he can put himself in position, and not to mention, he's got Ty Gibbs' pit crew now, where they switched a couple weeks ago, right in the playoffs. That's been the fastest pit crew all season. So if it comes down to a fast pit stop at the end, that team can get it done. So give me some Christopher Bell, just a little sprinkle on Bell at 25-1. I think you got to have it. Ty Gibbs, 28-1. Talked about him earlier. Talked about that top 10. I love Ty Gibbs. I think this could be the weekend he gets it done. Saw it last year. He's not afraid to move his teammate, knock his teammate out of the Final Four to win a race at this track. Maybe he does it again this weekend. Punts Denny, says, sorry, buddy, no championship for you. I'm going to get the trophy. Maybe he doesn't have to do that. But at 28-1 on DraftKings, I think that he's a good price. And then, again, I try not to do 4 too often, but there's too many big numbers on the board this week that I like. Ryan Preece at 45-1 absolutely dominated this race in the spring until the penalty. Still fought back for the 15th place finish. If he gets in the position again, he starts good. He runs up front all day. They don't have the mistakes. He's a tough guy to rule out. And you go back to the fact that he led 135 laps in the spring. I mean, it's a lot of laps to be out front. He can get it done at 45-1. I think it's worth it.
A 4-pack for Cody on the winners. And then I saw you threw one in there. Did you want to?
That's a bonus bet. We'll get to that after yours.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick with the Hendrick theme. And like I said, I set it up when I talked about the Hendrick winning team. I think William Byron has a shot to win this at 8-1. We saw how fast he was last week. I know this is a different track. I know this is a different track type, but it's William Byron. I mean, this guy obviously had been a monster all season long. He'd been just obviously the one with the most wins. Like, William Byron is quietly the best driver this season that you forget that he's the best driver this season because he's not in your face every single week. And for whatever reason, even though he pops up and he wins a bunch of races, you're still like, oh, that's right. William Byron is still out there. And it's still like, it's all about
won the most races this season.
That's
you
what
don't
I'm
even
saying.
think
It's
about
like,
it. Like,
and you don't even think about it because you're thinking about Denny. You're thinking about Kyle. You're thinking about Bell. You're thinking about all these other guys. But William Byron is the lethal assassin in this one. He's like quiet and just stealthy and just doing this.
He's so quietly in position every single week. He's always in the top 5 at the end. Like, he's going to be there with a chance to win.
Yeah. And again, so that's why I like I said, at 8-1, a lot like your Larson theory, it's too long for him, for a guy that has been in victory circle as much as he has this season. And on this track, not bad at all, right? 2021, 4th place, 2021 in the fall, 5th place. He won in the spring of 2022, 7th in the fall of 2022. Had a bad run. That was one of his few bad runs earlier in the season. He started 8th and finished 23rd. But obviously, we talked about it. He's just been that good all season long. And at 8-1, I don't think you can pass it up, because if he does end up winning this week and locks himself in with no hesitation whatsoever, then you're good. 2 second-place finishes at Talladega and the Roval, 7th at Vegas, 4th at Homestead. He won in Texas, right? 1 at Watkins Glen, 4th at Darlington. The dude's been a perennial top 10 driver and even then a top 5 driver. So he puts himself in position, like you said, at 8-1. It's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you just want to come into this weekend and bet Larson and Byron outrights 8-1 each, like, you're getting 2 of the best cars on a week-to-week basis that are going to be fast. There's going to be times during this race where you think for sure your ticket's going to cash and you're going to have a legit shot at the end. That's not even a bad strategy, because these guys are going to be good. So, I like the Byron at 8-1 as well.
All right. The last one, your bonus bet. You want to get to that before we recap the bets?
Yes, I do have a bonus bet. Denny Hamlin over on DraftKings is 11-1 to win the championship. I mentioned before, he's plus 275 to win this weekend. So if you look at it, you're not going to get him. So he's a heavy favorite to win this week, right? So here's my thinking is he wins this race, or he just points his way in because he's only 17 points out. Blaney has an issue. Byron has an issue. Larson wins, or Bell wins, or somebody else that, Gibbs wins, or whatever the deal is. He finds his way to Phoenix. He doesn't even have to win this week. You don't need that. He just finds his way to Phoenix as one of the championship 4. Next week, you're not getting any of the 4. I don't care which 4 it is. You're not getting any of them at 11-1. And this is just to win the championship. when Kevin Harvick wins the race next week, you don't even need Denny Hamlin to win the race, just to win the championship. I picked him at the start of the playoffs. It's an uphill battle at this point, right? Right now, the odds are he's not going to make the championship four. He's not, well, I guess the odds are he's going to because he's the favorite to win the race, if you want to look at it that way. So it depends how you look at it. But I think at 11-1 for Denny to win the championship, it would be a great investment to make this week. It's not long term, right? It's just a week ahead of time, basically. And then you're covered for next week. And again, it's not even to win the race. You're not even going to be able to get him to win the race at 11-1 next week, let alone if a non-championship driver wins the race, which I don't think has happened yet, but the possibility remains. Kevin Harvick's going to be in a very fast car, I'm telling you already. And so I think that getting in on Denny at 11-1 win the championship this week is a nice, solid future bet. And I like him to win this week. I think he is going to go for it, and he's not going to hold back. He's do they have poll odds out yet? What are his odds?
Yeah, they actually do have.
Let's find that, because I actually might want to add that, because I think from the start of the weekend he is going to just be going after it.
Yeah, so Caesars has the qualifying bets up right now, and they are at fastest qualifier.
It's not on my Caesars.
Oh, did it?
It must have dropped out.
They must have dropped it. Dang.
But
This is what happens.
Discord, because we'll I might update that, because I think he's going to be trying. Like, I think there's a potential he starts on the pole, he leads laps. If they don't make mistakes, he just dominates this entire race. So then you've got that investment at 11-1 next week. You can pivot and bet someone else to win the championship or the race, or however you want to do it. But I think it would be a good card to have in your pocket going into next week, assuming he makes it there at 11-1. And he's been much higher or lower odds, I guess, than this, much shorter odds prior to this week, where it's looking like maybe he won't make it. That's why they've dropped a little. So I think it's a good investment. Denny Hamlin, 11-1 win the championship.
All right, and that will do it for our card. So get out your pen and paper as we go over our bets for this Xfinity 500 from Martinsville. Cody started you off with Ty Gibbs as a top 10 car at plus 120 over on DraftKings. Followed it up with Ryan Preece, also in the top 10 at plus 160 on DraftKings. I threw Bubba Wallace inside the top 10 at plus 160 over on DraftKings. Cody gave you my man, AJ Allmendinger, as a top 10 car at plus 700 on Caesars. Yes, he's my man again. And then Briscoe as a top 5 car at plus 450 and a top 10 at plus 150 at Caesars. I gave you Ryan Blaney as a top 5 car at plus 190 on DK. Cody said that there will be less than 3.5 Chevys inside the top 10 at plus 130 over on Caesars. I said Larson would be a top 3 car at plus 225 now, or is it 250 still? One of the two. Find the number. If it's still over plus 200, I take it anyways. And then Cody gave you Ty Gibbs over Alex Bowman at minus 110 over on Superbook. I said that there would be more than 3.5 Fords inside the top 10 at minus 130. Cody said that among those, Eric Almirola and Briscoe at 9-1 and 12-1 respectively could be the top Ford in that group on Caesars. I said that Hendrick would be the winning team at plus 225. Also threw in the winning margin between 3.001 and 10 seconds at plus 450 on Caesars. And then Cody gave you Larson at 8-1 on Superbook, Bell at 25-1 on Superbook, Gibbs at 28-1 on DK, Preece at 45-1 on DK to win this race. I said Byron at 8-1. There's actually several books that have Byron at 8-1, so pick your poison there. And then Cody tossed in Denny Hamlin 11-1 to win the championship over on DraftKings to close out this Cup Series betting picks preview. What a card, Cody. What a full bustling card. It's almost like it's Christmas, and you're just stocking the stuffing.
Hey, we only got
stuffing the stocking?
Yeah, well, either way. We only got 2 races left. We got to get the bets in now, because
it's true.
We're almost to the end.
Almost to the end. Speaking of the end, we are at the end of this episode. So as we close things up and get everybody set to put their cards together, Cody, obviously we'll be back again tomorrow with Xfinity, and then of course later in the week with DFS and Underdog picks as well. But as we send everybody off packing, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Follow me on X at Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my work over there. Make sure you check out the YouTube as well. And the F1 Gambling Podcast back again this week. Their F1's racing again this weekend down in Mexico. Another mid-afternoon race for us. So It'll be good. Go make some more money on that as well.
Indeed. I'm on X at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's Sportsbook Review, whether it's In Between Media, the Back Road again this week. And then, look, check out Hot Rod on Sports. I'm on Twitter there at Hot Rod on Sports. That's where I'm going to put all of my picks from now on. I'm taking my Twitter back, and you want to talk to me, that's fine. If you want to follow along on my picks, at Hot Rod on Sports. Nothing up there yet. I'm getting there.
I got to go follow this page now.
Yeah, go follow at Hot Rod on Sports, and we'll talk about my picks there. But anyways, speaking of talking picks, we'll talk more tomorrow. Till then, everyone, let's go racing and let it ride.
Sweet as a